The next 2 weeks on Days of Our Lives, from August 17th through August 28th, look set to deliver a little bit of everything: heartbreak, hospital drama, romance, betrayal, and one major death that could leave Salem reeling. From my perspective, the biggest story is clearly the medical crisis surrounding Lexi Carver and Chanel Dupree DiMera. But at the same time, several other storylines are moving toward major turning points. During the week of August 17th to 21st, Gwen Recheck will continue facing pressure from Rafe Hernandez. He wants Gwen to turn on E.J. DiMera if she expects to receive full immunity. Jada Hunter will also learn about Rafe's proposal, so I'm wondering whether the two sides can actually reach a deal. Meanwhile, things will get complicated in Alemania. Leo Stark will push Dimitri von Leuschner to prove that his love is real by setting him free. It looks like Dimitri may finally give in, allowing Leo to return to Salem and reunite with Gwen. Of course, Leo's absence won't sit well with Javi Hernandez. Javi is likely to spiral while Leo is away, leaving Gus questioning whether their relationship has any future. Honestly, I think a breakup could be coming, especially if Gus realizes Javi is still emotionally stuck on his ex. Elsewhere, Holly Jonas and Tate Black will apparently decide to play matchmakers. Their target will be Aaron Green and Ariana "Ari" Horton, who have clearly been getting closer lately. Aaron already kissed Ari, so it seems they're officially moving beyond the friend zone. Their next opportunity could come when they're both assigned to babysit Trey DiMera. That situation should give Aaron and Ari plenty of time together, and I wouldn't be surprised if their feelings become even harder to ignore. There's also a romantic development involving Foster and Julie Williams, who are expected to share their first kiss. The interesting part will be what happens afterward. Will they embrace the moment, or will that kiss create a whole new set of complications? Then we get to the hospital, where the emotional stakes become much higher. Lexi Carver will be admitted, but unfortunately, the doctors won't be able to improve her condition. From the spoilers, it appears Lexi's health will deteriorate quickly, leaving Theo Carver and Abe Carver completely helpless as they watch her fade. Lexi will ultimately take her final breath at almost exactly the same time Chanel is giving birth. To me, that timing feels deliberately cruel in classic soap opera fashion. One life will be ending while another is entering the world, creating an incredibly bittersweet moment for Salem. But Chanel's delivery won't be peaceful either. Her childbirth will take a horrifying turn, with Chanel's own life suddenly in danger. There may also be serious concerns about the baby. So just when everyone should be celebrating a new arrival, the situation could become a full-blown medical emergency. Joy Wesley will have difficult news of her own when Kayla Johnson reveals that she could potentially become paralyzed because of her spinal stenosis. That revelation should add another heavy layer to the hospital storyline. On the romantic front, Sarah Horton and Brady Black will declare their love for one another and take their relationship to another level. After everything they've been through, I think fans will be watching closely to see whether this new chapter can actually last. Meanwhile, Marlena Evans will become increasingly involved in the strange chessboard mystery. Instead of simply being pulled along by everyone else, she may decide that she's had enough and actively throw herself into solving the puzzle. That could be a major advantage for Chad DiMera and Belle Black, who will have Marlena helping them follow the clues. Then there's Philip Kiriakis and his desperate attempt to save Titan. Philip will once again ask Gabby Hernandez for the $5 million he needs to make his high-stakes poker buy-in. It looks like Gabby may finally agree, potentially sending the pair to Monte Carlo as the week of August 24th to 28th begins. The big question is whether Philip will actually win. Could he lose everything? Or will some unexpected alternative emerge before he even gets the chance to gamble the money? I have a feeling the story may ultimately find a way to save Titan and the Kiriakis mansion. After all, it's difficult to imagine Days of Our Lives allowing Victor Kiriakis' legacy to completely collapse, at least not permanently. And then we circle back to Javi. After Leo's return, Javi may finally track him down and admit that he's still in love with him. If that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if Leo and Javi share a celebratory kiss once they're reunited. That could also explain why Gus has been pushed into questioning their relationship. Javi may finally have to stop pretending that his feelings for Leo are in the past. Finally, Abe and Paulina Price will likely become sources of comfort for one another. Paulina will be terrified as Chanel faces potentially life-threatening complications during childbirth. Abe, meanwhile, will be dealing with the devastating loss of Lexi. I think they'll naturally lean on each other as they try to survive two very different kinds of heartbreak. So, overall, the next 2 weeks look incredibly emotional for Salem. There's a major death, a dangerous childbirth, possible paralysis, romantic reunions, potential breakups, a high-stakes gambling adventure, and another round of mystery solving. I may be wrong about how every piece falls into place, but one thing seems clear. Salem is heading into a period where happiness and heartbreak are going to collide in some very dramatic ways. Days of Our Lives, 4 cheating curveballs that could shake Salem. Days of Our Lives spoilers suggest that relationship drama is about to take center stage in Salem. And honestly, I think several couples and exes could be headed for some very messy territory. There are betrayals brewing, old feelings refusing to disappear, and a few characters who may find it almost impossible to resist temptation. If these predictions play out, some of Salem's relationships could be changed forever. So let's take a closer look at 4 cheating curveballs that I think could be coming our way. 1. Could Sarah give in to Xander and hurt Brady? First, let's talk about Sarah Horton and Xander Kiriakis. After that almost kiss while they were trapped in the wine cellar, I think it's pretty obvious that the chemistry between these two hasn't completely disappeared. Xander may be trying to keep his distance because he knows there are still major trust issues between them, but that doesn't mean Sarah has stopped thinking about him. In fact, I was wondering if Sarah could eventually find herself giving in to those old feelings. She's with Brady Black now, but emotions in Salem are rarely that simple. If Xander continues to stay in her heart and another tempting moment comes along, Sarah could find herself crossing a line she never intended to cross. And if that happens, Brady could be left dealing with the fallout. 2. Could Stephanie turn to Theo after her marriage falls apart? Then there's Stephanie Kiriakis and Theo Carver. I think this situation could become especially interesting if Stephanie's already troubled marriage to Alex Kiriakis finally reaches its breaking point. Joy Wesley's manipulation has created one problem after another for Alex and Stephanie, and the ongoing chaos surrounding Kelsey Kiriakis could push their relationship even closer to collapse. If their belated wedding reception ends in disaster, I could see Stephanie reaching a point where she needs somewhere else to turn. And that's where Theo could come in. Days spoilers suggest Theo will need emotional support following Lexi Carver's death. So I was wondering whether Stephanie might become that source of comfort, and whether that comfort could eventually turn romantic. If Stephanie and Theo give in to their emotions, Alex may have even more reason to believe that his marriage is beyond saving. 3. Could Javi betray Gus for Leo? Next we have Javi Hernandez, Leo Stark, and Gus. This one could become a major emotional mess. Javi may end up helping Leo escape Dimitri von Leuschner's clutches, but regardless of how that whole situation unfolds, I think Javi's feelings for Leo are becoming harder to ignore. Days spoilers suggest Javi will soon profess his love for Leo, and if that happens after everything they've been through, I wouldn't be surprised if a kiss or another romantic moment follows. The big problem, of course, is Gus. No matter how Javi handles the situation, Gus could feel completely betrayed. But Javi may decide that following his heart is more important than trying to keep everyone happy. And when love triangles collide in Salem, somebody almost always ends up getting hurt. 4. Could Julie feel like she's cheating on Doug? Finally, there's Julie Williams. Julie is a widow who has slowly begun finding companionship with Foster following Doug Williams' death. And while she absolutely has the right to move forward with her life, I think her emotions could make that much harder than it sounds. Day's spoilers indicate that Julie and Foster are headed toward their first kiss. On paper, that isn't cheating. Doug is gone, and Julie isn't betraying him. But emotionally, I was wondering if Julie might still feel as though she's crossing a line. After spending so many years with Doug, moving on could bring up a huge amount of guilt and conflicting emotions. That first kiss with Foster might actually force Julie to confront the reality that she's beginning a new chapter. And that could create another complicated layer in her already difficult journey. What could happen next? So, I think Salem could be heading toward a serious relationship shakeup. Sarah and Xander still have unfinished emotional business. Stephanie and Theo could find themselves getting dangerously close if her marriage to Alex collapses. Javi may have to choose between loyalty and his feelings for Leo. And Julie could discover that moving on from Doug is emotionally much harder than she expected. Of course, these are predictions based on the current storylines, so I may be right, or I may be completely wrong. But that's what makes Days of Our Lives so unpredictable. If these cheating curveballs really are coming, I think the aftermath could be just as explosive as the betrayals themselves. John Oliver's 3-episode stint on Days of Our Lives may be over, but I think one unforgettable part of his Salem debut deserves a little extra attention. That spectacular wig. It was big, bushy, and honestly, beautiful. And what surprised me most is that the wig didn't come from the Days of Our Lives hair department at all. It came from John Oliver himself. During the week of August 10th, Oliver appeared in 3 episodes as Salem's chief water inspector, Devlin St. John, a very strange man who took his job extremely seriously. He was always ready with a rambling metaphor, and somehow, he was also a single father of 3 rescue ferrets. I was wondering where Days could possibly take a character like that, and naturally, things got even more ridiculous. Devlin attempted to outmaneuver EJ DiMera with a blackmail scheme, but with Rita's help, EJ turned the tables. Devlin ultimately paid the price, and now he's literally on ice. But while Devlin's storyline was short-lived, his hair certainly made an impression. Behind the scenes, Days of Our Lives hair department head Marisa Ramirez and her team are constantly working at an incredible pace. They can see as many as 30 actors in a single day, with performers moving from the hair chair to the set and back again. So when Oliver came aboard for only a few episodes, there was plenty to coordinate. The production schedule made things even more unusual. Because Days of Our Lives films episodes far in advance, Oliver's scenes were actually taped earlier in the summer and then inserted into episodes that only recently aired. As I understand it, Oliver and his team wanted to make the experience as smooth as possible, and that included making sure Devlin arrived with exactly the right hair. Ramirez says the Days team received an unexpected email explaining that Oliver would be bringing his own wig. We got a really cool email saying that he was going to be bringing his own wig, which was a total surprise, Ramirez explained. The wig arrived carefully packaged in a box on a mannequin head, which, to me, somehow makes the whole thing even more amusing. There was also plenty of preparation. Photos were sent ahead of time by Oliver's New York hair professional, Jennifer Serio, the Emmy-winning hairstylist known for her work on Saturday Night Live. So the Days team already knew they were dealing with a quality piece. And apparently, this was a first for Oliver. According to Ramirez, he had never worn a wig before. I didn't realize that, but when you think about it, it makes sense. A late-night host doesn't exactly spend his regular workday transforming into mysterious Salem officials with questionable hair. Because the wig was already so well made, the Days team didn't need to completely rebuild it. Hairdresser Armando Lacone put it on Oliver, and then the department made a few adjustments to make it work perfectly for the cameras. They trimmed it, added some finishing touches, and made sure Oliver was happy with the final look. And that last part seems important because Oliver apparently had a very specific vision for Devlin St. John. Ramirez said the team wanted to make sure they delivered on that vision. Oliver also wore the wig for the entire day of filming and apparently handled the experience like a pro. He never complained, even while spending hours wearing what was, by any reasonable standard, a substantial amount of hair. But he wasn't all business. Behind the scenes, Oliver reportedly joked around with the crew and completely lit up the room. Ramirez described his presence as a little surreal, which I can understand. One minute you're working on a normal Days of Our Lives episode, and the next, John Oliver is sitting in your chair wearing an enormous wig while preparing to play Salem's chief water inspector. To me, that is exactly the kind of strange, wonderfully unexpected moment that makes soap operas so much fun. Oliver may have only been in Salem for 3 episodes, but he clearly made an impression on the cast and crew. And while Devlin St. John's storyline may have ended up frozen, literally, I think his ridiculous, glorious wig deserves to be remembered as one of the most entertaining parts of the whole experiment. And honestly, if John Oliver ever returns to Salem, I'm hoping that wig comes with him. Days of Our Lives spoilers suggest that E.J. DiMera may be dealing with much more than an ordinary case of the flu. E.J. has suddenly found himself under the weather, and his doctor has prescribed medication for him. But I think there could be a much darker explanation for what is happening to him. Could E.J. somehow become exposed to chlorophyll and arsenic poisoning? There is already a serious problem brewing in Salem involving the tainted chlorophyll pills. More people could reportedly become sick or even die from the exposure, and that puts E.J. in an especially interesting position because he knows more about the situation than most people. E.J. was recently confronted by Devlin St. John, the corrupt water inspector who attempted to blackmail him for money. E.J. is also aware that the contaminated chlorophyll pills were disposed of on Smith Island, where Holly Jonas was exposed to arsenic and nearly died. Of course, E.J. did everything he could to keep the truth hidden. He wanted to make sure DiMera Pharmaceuticals wasn't blamed for what happened to Holly, or anyone else who may have been exposed. He even framed Holly as a drug user, after making sure she received medical help. But what if E.J. eventually pays the price for those choices? Spoilers suggest the contaminated drugs may still be circulating, especially after another hospital patient died. There have also been hints that additional people could become sick, which makes me wonder whether E.J. could eventually become one of the victims. Maybe E.J. could accidentally come into contact with contaminated water. Or perhaps someone could deliberately make sure he receives the tainted medication. That possibility becomes even more interesting because E.J. has been acting as though he is becoming the new Stefano DiMera. There have already been suggestions that something is happening to E.J.'s mind, and perhaps he has been brainwashed or manipulated into following Stefano's plans. But I think there could be another explanation. What if E.J.'s strange behavior is actually connected to the medication he has been given for his supposed flu? Could he have already been exposed to arsenic and simply been misdiagnosed? The irony would be incredible if E.J., after helping cover up the contaminated drugs and protecting DiMera Pharmaceuticals, suddenly became a victim of those same drugs. After all, someone appears to be working behind the scenes to carry out Stefano's plans. We still don't know exactly who this person is or why they are watching the people connected to Stefano's will. Could this mysterious person decide that E.J. is standing in the way? If so, they might have the perfect opportunity. E.J. is already sick, so poisoning him with the contaminated drugs could make his condition look like a natural illness, or at least make it much harder for anyone to realize that someone is trying to eliminate him. To me, that would be a delicious twist. EJ has spent so much time manipulating other people and protecting the DiMera name that it would be almost poetic if someone turned his own secret against him. Of course, I could be completely wrong. Maybe EJ really does have the flu, and his strange behavior is connected to something entirely different. But if these spoilers are pointing toward another major poisoning storyline, I think EJ could be headed for a serious fight for his life. And if someone really is trying to continue Stefano's legacy, EJ may soon discover that being a DiMera doesn't make him untouchable. It could make him the perfect target. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Tuesday, August 18th bring several intriguing developments to Salem, and I think there may be more happening beneath the surface than these spoilers are letting on. Gwen suddenly finds herself back on JJ's radar. Theo confronts Johnny over a painful secret. Tate and Holly decide to play matchmaker. Julie's date with Foster takes an unexpected turn, and Aaron and Ari spend some time with baby Trey. JJ reaches out to Gwen. And honestly, I was wondering what could possibly be behind this sudden contact. We don't know exactly what JJ wants yet, but the timing certainly makes me curious. Gwen has already been through quite a lot. She traveled all the way to Alemania to help save Leo from Dimitri, only to wind up a prisoner herself. Thankfully, Gwen and Leo eventually managed to escape, but I don't think that necessarily means Gwen's problems are finished. Now her half-brother is reaching out. Could JJ simply be checking on Gwen after everything she has endured? Maybe he needs her help with something. Or perhaps this unexpected conversation could bring Jack's children closer together in a way neither of them expected. I could be wrong, but whenever Salem siblings suddenly reconnect, I start wondering if there is a bigger story waiting underneath it all. Theo confronts Johnny, and this one could get emotional. Johnny knew Lexi was dying and chose to keep the truth from Theo and Abe because that was what his aunt wanted. From Johnny's perspective, he was respecting Lexi's wishes. But from Theo's perspective, he and Abe were left wondering where Lexi was and what was happening to her. Eventually, Theo learned the truth, and now Johnny may have to explain why he stayed silent. Johnny can certainly argue that he was only honoring Lexi's final wishes, but will Theo be able to accept that explanation? I don't think this is simply about Johnny keeping a secret. To me, it is also about Theo realizing that he missed the opportunity to be there for someone he loved. That could make this confrontation much more painful than Johnny expects. Tate and Holly play matchmaker. Meanwhile, Tate and Holly have decided they are ready to help someone else find love. And I have to admit, considering the twists and turns in their own relationship, I'm not entirely convinced these are the two people Salem should be trusting with matchmaking duties. Still, they apparently have someone in mind. The big question is whether their surprise match will actually make two people happy, or whether Tate and Holly are about to discover that interfering in someone else's love life can become a full-contact sport in Salem. I think there is plenty of potential for this storyline to become funny, awkward, or even unexpectedly romantic. Sometimes the people trying to play Cupid end up creating the biggest mess. Julie's date with Foster takes a turn. Julie goes on a date with Foster, but something happens that she wasn't expecting. Now, the question is whether this surprise will leave Julie wanting another date, or whether it will create an immediate snag in this budding relationship. I'm curious about this one because unexpected turns on a date can go either way. Maybe Julie discovers something that makes her even more interested in Foster. Or perhaps she encounters something that makes her rethink where this relationship is headed. Either way, I don't think this date is going to go exactly according to plan. Aaron and Ari spend time with baby Trey. Elsewhere, Aaron and Ari spend some time with baby Trey. We'll have to see what comes from their time with the little one, but even seemingly quieter scenes in Salem can sometimes set up something important later. Overall, Tuesday's episode looks like it could balance family drama, romance, matchmaking, and a few surprises. I think the biggest questions are what JJ really wants from Gwen and how Theo will react when Johnny tries to explain why he kept Lexi's secret. Those two stories could have consequences that stretch well beyond Tuesday's episode. When I look at the August 18th sneak peek photos for Days of Our Lives, I think Salem is about to deliver one of those episodes where almost everyone has something going on beneath the surface. There are awkward date night moments, emotional reunions, romantic surprises, and, of course, plenty of tension at the hospital. Let's start with Julie and Foster, because their attempt at another date night definitely has me wondering where this relationship is headed. The two spend time at the Horton family home, but Julie doesn't exactly look comfortable in every moment. In one photo, Foster is holding her hands while Julie looks away, and to me, that body language says quite a bit. Maybe she's simply nervous, or maybe Julie is beginning to realize that this relationship isn't as easy as she hoped. Foster also meets JJ while Trey is around. Johnny called Julie to babysit after Chanel went into labor, so the timing is certainly complicated. Eventually, Julie and Foster move their date night to the Brady pub, where they run into Roman. I'm guessing Roman may have an update about Chanel, considering everything happening at the hospital. Whatever the conversation is about, it looks serious enough to make me wonder whether Julie and Foster's romantic evening is about to turn into something much more emotional. Meanwhile, Ari and Aaron are also at the pub with Trey. The photos actually make this group look surprisingly happy. They sit a couple of tables apart, but there seems to be a relaxed atmosphere between them. Aaron even gets to hold his son, and honestly, he looks thrilled. I think his happiness has a lot to do with more than just seeing Trey, though. After that kiss with Ari, Aaron has been walking around with a smile that is impossible to miss. I wouldn't be surprised if his feelings for Ari become even harder for him to hide. Roman also has a private conversation with Ari, and that immediately makes me curious. Could he be questioning her about Aaron? Or perhaps he has something important to tell her about Chanel and the current crisis. Aaron's good mood continues when he heads to Horton Town Square and talks with Tate and Holly. But the mood between Tate and Holly isn't entirely light. One photo shows them having what appears to be a serious conversation. Then, just when things seem tense, Tate pulls Holly in for a kiss. So whatever they were discussing apparently doesn't keep them apart for long. Their moment doesn't last, though, because Gwen enters the picture. Tate has been worried about Gwen after she failed to show up for her training sessions. When he finally sees her, he gives her a hug, and Gwen looks genuinely surprised by the gesture. I think this could be an important moment for Gwen. She has been through quite a bit, and seeing Tate and Holly again seems to give her a much-needed reason to smile. The photos suggest that the reunion is emotional rather than hostile, which is interesting considering everything these characters have been dealing with. Gwen also gets another unexpected reunion at the Salem Inn when JJ comes to see her. Given the complicated history between these siblings, I'm definitely curious about why JJ is making the effort now. There's no shortage of bad blood between them, so JJ showing up at Gwen's room could lead to a confrontation. Or perhaps something more surprising. There's also a photo of Gwen alone and talking on the phone. I have to wonder if she's trying to reach Leo. Gwen left Leo behind in Alemania with Dimitri, so it would make sense if she's still trying to keep tabs on what is happening there. Then we get to the hospital, where the biggest tension appears to be building. Several Salem residents are giving blood, presumably because Chanel needs a transfusion after going into labor. And this is where things become particularly uncomfortable, because Johnny and Theo end up giving blood right next to each other. That has to be awkward under normal circumstances, but considering everything involving Lexi, I think the tension is unavoidable. The spoilers indicate that Theo calls Johnny out for lying about Lexi, and these sneak peek photos appear to give us a preview of that confrontation. Theo looks unhappy, and honestly, I can understand why. Both men are dealing with major emotional situations. Theo is grieving Lexi, while Johnny is dealing with Chanel's difficult labor. There is already so much pressure surrounding them that Johnny's lie could push Theo over the edge. Paulina also gives blood and has a conversation with Johnny. And if she discovers that Johnny lied about Lexi, I doubt she is going to quietly let that go. Paulina has plenty to say when she believes someone has done something wrong, so I'm expecting this conversation to be uncomfortable for Johnny. Another interesting hospital pairing is JJ and Theo. The two have a complicated history, so seeing them talking at the hospital immediately catches my attention. My first thought is that Lexi will probably be the biggest topic. Theo's focus is understandably on Lexi right now, and JJ may have his own thoughts or questions about everything that has happened. Overall, I think the August 18th episode is setting up several different emotional threads at once. Julie and Foster's date night could reveal cracks in their relationship. Aaron and Ari seem to be getting closer. Tate and Holly continue their romantic momentum, and Gwen is unexpectedly reconnecting with people from her past. But the hospital may be where the biggest fireworks happen. With Chanel needing blood, Johnny facing Theo, and Paulina potentially learning about the lie, I wouldn't be surprised if the blood donation scenes turn into something much more explosive than anyone expected. And as for Gwen, I'm especially curious about her next move. Between Tate, Holly, JJ, and possibly Leo, she suddenly has several connections pulling her in different directions. Maybe I'm reading too much into the photos, but to me, this looks like one of those Days of Our Lives episodes where seemingly ordinary conversations could quickly become major turning points. Salem rarely lets anyone enjoy a peaceful moment for very long, and August 18th looks like it will be no exception. When the one and only Jackée Harry turned 70 on August 14th, she didn't just count the candles on her birthday cake. I think she had plenty of reasons to count her lucky stars, too. On this milestone birthday, the Days of Our Lives star celebrated with the kind of humor and honesty that has defined her career. She said she was grateful and joked that she had survived many men, many a bad wig, and many television networks. And honestly, I think that pretty much sums up Jackée Harry perfectly. Life has given her plenty to laugh about, and certainly plenty to cry about. But after all these decades, she's still standing, still working, and still pushing forward. To me, that is the real celebration. Harry isn't simply a familiar face on television. She's an icon. She made history as the first Black woman to win the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy. And her television career began back in 1983 when she played Lily Mason on Another World. From there, Primetime came calling. Her unforgettable performance as Sandra Clark on 227 became so popular that the character eventually helped lead to a spin-off, and that was only the beginning. Over the years, Harry continued working almost nonstop. She spent 5 seasons on Sister Sister and made memorable appearances on shows ranging from Glee and Two Broke Girls to Everybody Hates Chris. Then, in 2021, she brought that unmistakable Jackée energy to Salem as Paulina Price, Abe Carver's former wife on Days of Our Lives. I think the soap world was a natural fit for her because she has the personality, timing, and larger-than-life presence to make almost any storyline more entertaining. And now, at 70, she's still doing what she does best, making people laugh, creating memorable characters, and proving that age is hardly a limit when the passion is still there. I was wondering how many performers can look back on a career this long and still have audiences excited about what they might do next. With Jackée, that curiosity is still very much alive. As she wrapped up her birthday celebration, Harry simply thanked everyone for the love. And to me, that feels like the perfect ending to a remarkable milestone. Gratitude, humor, resilience, and a reminder that she's still here, still fabulous, still funny, and thankfully, still Jackée. Days of Our Lives spoilers for the week of August 17th, 2026 suggest that the soap is about to deliver a mix of emotional reunions, dangerous surprises, and some potentially heartbreaking moments. I think the biggest question may be what happens during Chanel Dupree DiMera's labor, especially with the ominous hints about the cycle of life. Let's start with JJ Devereaux and Gwen Recheck. The half-siblings are set to reconnect, which is interesting considering Gwen has never exactly had the easiest relationship with the family. JJ previously tried to extend an olive branch, so I was wondering what finally brings these two back into each other's orbit now. Could Leo Stark and Dimitri von Leuschner somehow be connected to this? Or is there another family issue waiting to surface? Meanwhile, Aaron Green and Ari Horton may be heading toward a change in their relationship. Aaron has seemingly had a crush on Ari for quite some time, while Ari has always treated him as a friend. But as these teenagers grow older, I think Ari may finally start looking at Aaron differently. The timing is certainly interesting because Aaron and Ari will be babysitting while Chanel gives birth. Could spending that time together make Ari realize that her feelings for Aaron have changed? Of course, Chanel's labor appears to be the major emotional storyline of the week. The delivery is described as dangerous, and the spoilers also tease a cycle of life. At first glance, that sounds incredibly ominous, especially because Lexi Carver's death appears to be part of the story. Still, I'm not convinced the writers will have Chanel lose another child. That would be an especially brutal development. My guess is that the cycle of life could involve Lexi's death happening around the same time Chanel's baby is fighting for its life, creating a bittersweet contrast between loss and new beginnings. Chanel's dangerous delivery is also expected to remind Lonnie Price Grant and Eli Grant of their own heartbreaking loss. Fans know that Lonnie previously lost a child before eventually becoming the mother of the twins, so I think Chanel's situation could bring some very painful memories back to the surface for her. Elsewhere, Foster and Julie Williams are going on a date, but apparently things take a surprising turn. Considering this is Salem, I would not expect an ordinary romantic evening to stay ordinary for very long. Xander Cook Kyriakis also receives an offer on the estate, while Philip Kyriakis once again tries to step in and save the day. The big question is whether Philip can actually convince Gabby Hernandez to go along with his plan. Marlena Evans, meanwhile, gets pulled into the mysterious chessboard storyline. Stephanie Johnson leans on Chad DiMera for support, while Alex Kyriakis is there for Joy Wesley. And then there is Jada Hunter, who interrogates E.J. DiMera. That could be one of the more explosive confrontations of the week. The real question is whether E.J. will finally admit the whole truth, or find another way to manipulate the situation and keep his secrets buried. Overall, I think the week of August 17th could be especially emotional for Days of Our Lives. We have family members reconnecting, young relationships potentially changing, a dangerous birth, old grief resurfacing, and a mystery that continues to pull more Salem residents into the chaos. But the biggest mystery for me is still Chanel's delivery and the meaning behind that cycle of life tease. I may be wrong, but I have a feeling the writers are setting up a storyline where devastating loss and a new beginning happen almost simultaneously. I think Tuesday's episode of Days of Our Lives takes a welcome walk on the lighter side, at least for a little while. While Salem is still surrounded by drama and chaos, some familiar faces are simply trying to enjoy an evening together. But, as always in Salem, even a fun night can quickly turn emotional. At the Brady pub, Julie is on baby duty with Trey, and it looks like she has another date with Foster. Since it appears to be trivia night again, Trey is simply going to have to come along for the ride. I was wondering how awkward this evening might become when Julie and Foster run into Aaron and Ari. Holly and Tate have apparently arranged for Aaron and Ari to spend some quality time together, hoping they can have a nice evening away from all the usual drama.